Hi everyone, welcome back to Mari Clark Creations. I'm so glad that you joined me here today. My question today is I have this stash. What can I make with it? If that's you too, if you've been collecting a lot of beautiful craft supplies and you've been thinking about what you can make with those different things, I have some inspiration for you today with some products that I have in my stash, including this beautiful collection from Altenew called Captivating Floral Swag. So pretty. This gorgeous floral image with a coordinating die that cuts out the floral image. Beautiful sentiments. The die set cuts the sentiments out as well. And then, of course, the beautiful coordinating stencil so that you can easily color this in. Now, I've placed a piece of white cardstock in my scrapbooking Misty. This is some Hammermill 100-pound cardstock that is beautiful for stamping, really nice for ink blending too. And my 12 by 12 scrapbooking Misty is really great for large stamps like this as well. I know that the Altenew 2.0 repositionable stamping tool is really great for these as well, but I don't have that yet. I hope to get that soon. It's on my wish list. So I've stamped this up, inked this up with some jet black ink from Altenew. And now I just wanted to show you with this type of a stamp, they do show you on the packaging how you use the stencil with the stamp, which is great because sometimes you can look at a stencil and it can be kind of daunting. And Altenew does a really great job of helping you out with this sort of thing. This is the Altenew grip mat that I'm using on my desk to hold my paper in place while I'm ink blending. And I am going to start off with the first stencil. And I have the guide open over to the left on my desk. And that just is going to help me figure out, where I need to go next with each different section of my stencil. The inks I'm using are from the Tranquility quad of fresh dye inks from Altenew. These inks include Dark Night, Nimbus, Cloudy Sky, and Misty Morning, and they're just really, really gorgeous. It's a gorgeous ink palette. I really love it. Not really a traditional color necessarily for florals, but if you love blue like I do, I could color all of my flowers blue every single time. How can I use my ink stash? Let me tell you, I definitely have full set syndrome, and I love the Altenew fresh dye inks. When they started to come out with these in the coordinating paper, I started to collect these. So I have a lot of this in my stash. I have a lot of the inks and a lot of the paper. So I really wanted to coordinate those inks with this beautiful Captivating Floral Swag collection. So you can just see that I'm going in with a pretty light coloring here for my first layers, and I really wanted to keep this primarily light with some really beautiful, intense, dramatic pops of the darker shades as well. And I think that this really worked out nicely in the end. When you saw the finished card at the beginning, or a little bit of the finished card in my thumbnail, I really like how it turned out. And I think, the great thing about ink blending is you can do whatever you want. You can, go bold. You can, combine different colors. So I could have gone with greens on this one as well with the blues, and so on and so forth. You can really, the sky's the limit. So whatever inks you have in your stash when you're ink blending, you can combine them however it is that you want to create the effect that you desire. So here you can just see again, I'm going in with, so on this piece here, I'm going in with a darker right at kind of the base of the petal, and then blending that out a little bit, but trying to keep the outer edges of the petals a little bit softer, and then creating a little bit of that darker pop here and there just for that dramatic extra little detail. I like that. I think it looks really good. And you can see that I have 2 inks out at a time on my ink stands over to the right there. And I'm just switching out my different Altenew blending brushes here as I change out my colors, just to try not to contaminate the lighter brush with the darker ink. And in that way, it will just make it a little bit easier for me to just to, keep my brushes the way that I want them. So here you can just see again, I'm just going in with all the different stencils to add the layers, and that guide is just helping me to do that. What I love about the Altenew stencils is that on one stencil, they have multiple different areas so that you can just shift the stencil up or down. Sometimes you have to turn the stencil like 90 degrees or whatever to get it into the right position. But that's all explained really, really well in the packaging so that you're never kind of really lost. And this particular portion of the stencil is adding some top detail layers. So with the top detail layers, I wanted to go a little bit more dramatic. Now, when you're blending this type of a floral, and there's so many layers to the stencils, it's better to start with your lightest color always so that you can then add in the darker details as you go. And that's a really nice thing about the quad inks, is that you have all of those colors and shades of the color built into that color palette so that there's really no guesswork. You can just go to the next shade and it just works out really well for you. So I love that about the Fresh Dye Ink quads. I'm just using a little bit of Post-it tape here to protect the other areas of my paper, the other florals and so on, so that I don't over stencil and just protect them in that way. I really kind of wanted the leaves to be super dramatic. So you will see that a lot of the darker colors or shades come in with the leaves. I thought that just looked kind of cool and added some really neat contrast to the petals of the floral so that you can, it's really obvious which ones are petals and which ones are leaves. Obviously they are anyways because of the way that the flower is constructed, but it makes it just that much more obvious. Now you notice that the leaf that I did first on this stencil here is up at the top, and it's actually upside down when the stencil's in the right orientation. So you literally have to flip the stencil upside down and get it into the right position. But as I mentioned before, the packaging details that all very clearly for you. It's very, very well done. And I love how in the packaging instructions, it's all color coded so that they make it very, very obvious which section of the stencil and the stamp that they're referring to. So if you struggle with that a little bit, I highly do recommend the Altenew stamps and coordinating stencils. They do a really great job of instructing you and teaching you through what you need to do. So again, here there's other florals besides those really large ones on this stamp, and what I wanted to do with those ones is darken them up a little bit more as opposed to the large florals. So for these little portions, these sections, you'll see me adding more drama to those ones as well. And again, I'm just taping things off here a little bit, like I said, just to protect the other sections, but I wasn't sure at this point if I was going to use the die to cut this out completely or if I was going to use this for a card panel front and then use a rectangle die to just like spotlight part of it and cut it out. I wasn't sure, so I wanted to try to make sure that I wasn't going over onto the white space around the flower. If you're die cutting this, it's not as important to worry about protecting the space around the stamp, the outer edges of the stamp, because the die actually does a really great job of cutting really close to the stamp line. But I wasn't really sure at this point, and I didn't want to be limited when I went to decide what I wanted to do with it. So the taping off just really, helps you to have more options when you go to use your finished panel when you're done ink blending. This is one of the smaller detail brushes from Altenew. I feel like Altenew does a really great job of their blending brushes. They have so many different options. They've got really large ones that are, I want to say, probably like an inch and a half to 2 inches. Then they've got one that's about an inch. Then they've got these ones here that I'm using now that are probably about, I want to say, about half an inch. And then the blending the detail ones vary in size, and it's a really nice little set too. So they've done a really great job and kind of thought of everything with their blending brushes, and they're really, really great quality. I find that they work so well, and they pick up ink nicely, and all the things. So I'm very, very happy with my Altenew brush purchases. So here I'm just adding in some more of the details. We're getting really, really close to being finished with the stencils. There are, I believe, 4 or 5 stencils in this set, and so much detail. Really, really great. Now you could choose not to do some of this top detail. So right now I'm adding some darker top details to the leaves, for example. You might choose to leave that layer out. You don't have to do all of these layers. You might feel like your florals, your leaves look more natural without that, or you just don't feel like it needs that detail on your particular project. Totally fine. You could also do some of these finer details in some paste or some other medium to add that little bit of extra detail to your project. I thought about that. I thought about doing the flower centers in some paste, some metallic or something like that. But I chose not to because you'll see as the card progresses and where I finish up, I kind of wanted it to be more of a clean finish rather than having the metallic paste on here. So just adding in those extra little details around the centers and on the foliage. And I think at this point I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I forgot some of the areas that I needed to go back and add in. And I'll finish up some of the foliage at the end here that I may have forgotten to add in. Altenew has several or many sets in their collection that are like this captivating floral swag, where they have the stamp, the stencil, the die, and they also, these ones come, I believe this one did come as well with a brush. So sometimes you can actually purchase these collections, and they come with one of the blending brushes as well, which is very cool. This is back to stencil number 3. I forgot this one little foliage piece here. What I would definitely recommend is if you have to go back to a stencil, I like to clean my stencils before I do that, just so that I don't contaminate any part of my cardstock with ink that's on the stencil. Okay, this is a coordinating die. You can just see how beautifully nice and tight it cuts around your piece. I'm going to place this on my mat, and you'll notice that I did cut off the extra paper around the edge just because I've decided obviously that I'm going to die cut it. And so I'm just taking my time to make sure that my die is in just the right place before I run it through my Anna Griffin Empress. I don't have a larger Anna Griffin magnet than this one. So I do have the large machine, but I don't have the really large magnet. So I had to go with that size that I was using there. Beautiful when it is cut out. Isn't that gorgeous? And it is quite large, so you can cut this up into pieces, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I used a little bit of Imagine Craft Sheer Shimmer Craft Spray in the Sparkle. And I'm also going to be using Gina K Master Layouts 20. Now, what's really cool about this die, and I love all of Gina's master layouts. I don't have them all, but I have quite a few of them in my stash. And I want to just break those out and see if I could do something different and creative with a die in my stash. So I'm going to use this frame die, which is very cool because it's stitched, and what it does is it adds a the stitching to the frame, and it adds stitching to the panel that it cuts out in the center. I love that. So look how cool this is. It's going to cut out that floral piece there, but it's only got an edge on it doesn't completely have an edge on all 4 sides. You can see that in the right lower portion there, it's got just the florals with no hard solid edge. I love that. And I'm taking all of the little pieces out for the frame, and I'll show you how I'm going to use those. Now this is sized more for a 5x7 card. So I've got a side folding 5x7 card base in white cardstock. Again, this is just my Hammermill 100-pound smooth cardstock. I'm going to use some 1-inch Altenew foam tape on the back of that panel that cut out in the center. and that's going to pop that up. I have used Master Layouts 20 so many times since I purchased it. I love this die set. It is so versatile. There's so many cool things you can do with this. And Gina has like 1 million videos over on her YouTube channel showing how to use the Master Layouts. So make sure you check that out if you've never used Master Layouts before or you're looking for more inspiration. Now, I'm sorry I'm off camera, out of frame here a little bit. I've just wanted to get my head over this really well and try to center that. I am going to use my Simon Says Stamp 12-inch T-square ruler. And that's just going to help me make sure that before I really press this down, that I have that in place. And then I'll give that a really nice press. And that's more or less centered on my project. Now you can see how I can go and take these other pieces that were cut with that frame and add them on to the edges. And I just think that looks so interesting and so unique. And I love that it provides more white space around the florals. I just love that. I think it looks really cool. And I just went and I matched up the pieces that were cut away, and then I just took some liquid adhesive and glued them into place around the center panel. And that's just going to add some really fun detail to this project. It's kind of a little bit scary when you go to all the work and time of stenciling this large piece and then you're experimenting with it, right? You're cutting it up and you're not really sure how it's going to look. What you could do is you could die cut out just a white piece of paper using the die and see how it works with the Gina K Master Layouts or whatever it is that you're using, and see how it's going to turn out before you actually take it to your colored panel. But look how pretty that is. I love the details. I'm just going to snip off this little piece that's hanging over, and I love that. I think it's so pretty. The colors, the blue and the white together, just, it's so sharp. Now I'm going to take the sentiment from the Captivating Floral Swag stamp set. This one says, "Adore You." The font is stunning. I love the size of this stamp. Gorgeous. Stamp that out with some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, which is a really slow drying pigment ink. I'm going to put some clear embossing powder over top of that, and then I'll melt that with my heat tool. And that's going to make this really nice and shiny and vibrant. It's really going to add a nice pop of crisp detail to our card front. I'm going to take the coordinating die, line that up, and die cut that out. And I'm actually going to die cut this out, I want to say maybe 5 times or so, out of just plain white cardstock as well. So you can see how that works nicely on that Empress magnet there. I love that die cutting machine. I actually recently bought the mini just to put on my desk so that it's really nice and handy just on my desk. I'm really getting lazy, but anyways, it is nice just to be able to have that right on my desk. Now this is some of the new Simon Says Stamp Positively Perfect craft glue. I love that stuff. It works really well, and I like it. I like the little bottles. They just fit so nicely on the side of my desk when I'm working, and it does have a little bit of wiggle room time. It's actually the perfect glue, I think. So I've really been enjoying working with that. I ordered a bunch of the small bottles, and now I've got a really great stash of that glue for the future. So I'm going to add all of these layers together, all of these die cuts from that Adore You die. And that's going to create just a really nice dimensional, almost like a thick piece of chipboard for my sentiment for the front of my card. I really like the idea of putting it down in the bottom lower right. And now I'm going to take my Stamperia Contour White product, and this is such a fun product. I love that the tip on it is so fine, and you just put it right against your paper and give it a little tiny squeeze, and it's going to add the most gorgeous white dot detail that's super dimensional. I love this stuff. It is a winner, and you can get this in iridescent, in black, you can get it in gold. It probably comes in more than that. I think there's a copper maybe. I have it in the white, the black, the gold, and the iridescent, and I love it. It is so, so good. So I've got my really nice little white dimensional dots in the centers of my large florals. And now I'm just going to take again that Simon Says Stamp craft glue and add it to the back of my sentiment. And I'm going to put that down into that placement down in this area here. Really love how that's looking. Now, I love that Altenew has coordinating enamel dots in a ton of different colors. This happens to be the North Shore color pack, and the dots are in medium, large, small, and then they also have shapes. So there's stars and there's hearts on that same card of enamel dots, and the enamel dot card is huge, so you get a ton of enamel dots in that set. Now I'm going to take a little bit of white paint. I'm going to just add a little bit of water to it. I'm going to add a little bit of fine white splatter with a really fine brush to my project here. And I'm going to just really try to avoid the sentiment there. I probably should have covered the sentiment up. And now you can see I have the sentiment covered with one of the die cuts in the same shape. And I'm using some Yasutomo watercolor in silver just to add a little bit of extra sparkle and shine to my project. And friends, that's going to finish it up. I really like how this one turned out. Please make sure you check out the description box below for a list of all of the products that I've used today. Those are affiliate links, so if you shop with those links, I do receive a small commission at no extra charge to you. Please make sure that you hit the thumbs up if you like this video, and if you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you as a new subscriber. Have a wonderful day, friends, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.